A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times will come to ruin among so many who are not good. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that 500 years ago, and it explains almost everything that has gone wrong in your life. Here's the rule nobody says out loud. Being a good person is not protecting you, it is marking you. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you and you let it slide to keep the peace. You told yourself you were being the bigger man. Here's what actually happened. You taught them the price of doing it again is 0, and they learned it instantly. That's not cynicism, it's arithmetic. Every time you absorb a cost to avoid a conflict, you subsidize the person creating the conflict. Do it enough times and you don't have friends and colleagues anymore. You have a queue of people who have discovered that you're free. Machiavelli watched this destroy men far more powerful than you. He watched a man rule an entire city on pure moral goodness, and he watched what was left of him afterward. I'll tell you that story in 60 seconds, and it's uglier than you think. But there's something underneath all of this that almost nobody sees. The real reason people walk over you, and it has nothing to do with your kindness. It points somewhere else entirely, and when you see it, you can't unsee it. I'll show you at the end. Stay for that part. Florence, 1494. A Dominican friar named Girolamo Savonarola takes control of one of the richest cities in Europe, not with an army but with words. He preaches against corruption, greed, vanity, and the city listens, genuinely listens. For 4 years, Florence becomes his sermon. He organizes the famous bonfire of the vanities. Citizens voluntarily hauling their mirrors, cosmetics, playing cards, fine clothes and paintings into the public square to be burned, not looted, donated. This man moved an entire city to give up its pleasures because he convinced them it was right. He was, by every measure that matters to most people, a genuinely good man, incorruptible. He refused bribes. He lived simply. He told the truth to the powerful, including the Pope, when it cost him everything. Now here's how it ended. In 1498, the Pope excommunicated him. His enemies, the wealthy families whose luxuries he'd burned, the political rivals he'd humiliated with his honesty, moved against him. And Florence, the same city that had wept at his sermons, turned. He was arrested, tortured for days on the rack, and on the 23rd of May they hanged him in the same public square where the bonfire had burned and set his body on fire beneath the rope. His ashes were thrown in the river so no one could keep a relic. Niccolò Machiavelli was 29 years old and living in Florence. He saw it happen, and years later, writing The Prince, he distilled the entire lesson into one merciless line. All armed prophets have conquered, and unarmed prophets have come to grief. Read that again, because it's not about weapons, it's about leverage. Savonarola had the moral high ground and nothing else. No force, no alliances, no cost he could impose on anyone who moved against him. His goodness was completely sincere and completely undefended. So the moment it became inconvenient to the powerful, it was simply deleted and the man with it. Now bring it out of Renaissance Italy, because you're living the small version of this every week. The colleague who takes credit for your work, the friend who only calls when they need something, the family member who treats your boundaries as a suggestion. You've been meeting all of it with patience, understanding, forgiveness. And it hasn't stopped, has it? It's escalated. That's the pattern. Goodness, without the capacity to impose a cost, isn't virtue. It's an open invitation, and predators can read it from across the room. So, here's your first tool, and it's a hard one. Look at the person in your life who takes the most from you. Now ask, what, concretely, would happen to them if they crossed me tomorrow? If the honest answer is nothing, you already have your explanation. You're not being taken advantage of because you're unlucky. You're being taken advantage of because it's free. But to fix it, you have to understand what people are actually reading when they look at you. And it isn't your character. Answer this honestly. When you meet someone new, how long does it take you to figure out whether you can push them? Be honest. Most people know within a single conversation, not consciously, but they know. Because human beings are running a calculation constantly, under everything. And it isn't, is this person good? It's, What does this person cost me? Machiavelli built his entire philosophy on this observation. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, deceitful, cowardly, and greedy. And before you dismiss that as pessimism, notice what he's actually describing. Not evil, self-interest. People respond reliably to incentives. Change the incentive, change the behavior. That's not a dark view of humanity, it's an accurate one. So here's the engine underneath everything in this video. People do not treat you according to who you are. They treat you according to what treating you badly costs them. You believe your kindness communicates, I am a good person, be good to me. What it actually communicates, in the language everyone is really speaking, is a price. And your price is low. Think about how fast this gets read. The first time you say, it's fine, when it wasn't fine. The first time you take on the extra work without a word. The first time you apologize for something that wasn't your fault, just to end the tension. Each one is a data point, and people collect them at a speed that would frighten you. Within weeks, someone new in your life knows exactly how much they can take before you push back, and they know it far more precisely than you do. And notice the cruelty in the design. Your worst behavior toward you comes from the people you've been kindest to the longest. Not because they're monsters, because they have the most data. They've had years to learn exactly where your line is, and years of confirmation that the line moves when they lean on it. This is why the advice, just be a good person and good things will come, is not merely useless, it's dangerous. It describes a world that doesn't exist. In the real world, goodness is a signal, and signals get exploited by anyone whose interests conflict with yours. Machiavelli's uncomfortable insight was that virtue and effectiveness are two separate systems. A man can be entirely right and entirely destroyed. Savonarola was right about corruption. It didn't save him. Being right was never the mechanism. Leverage was. So here's your second tool, and it's a reframe you install permanently. Stop asking, am I being a good person here? And start asking, what am I teaching this person about what they can do to me? Every interaction is a lesson. You are always teaching. The only question is whether you're teaching them that you have a flaw or teaching them that you don't. But there's a specific way people discover your flaw, and it happens long before the real exploitation begins. It's a test, and it's happening to you constantly, and almost nobody recognizes it while it's happening. What if I told you that most of the people who eventually walk all over you ran a test on you first? A small, deniable, almost invisible one. And you passed it without ever knowing you were being examined. This is how it actually works. Nobody starts by taking something big. Big requests trigger defenses. Instead, they start with a probe, a small violation designed to measure your response. Watch for these because you've been through all of them this month. The small ask that isn't quite fair. Could you just handle this one thing for me? Where the thing is clearly their responsibility, it's minor. Refusing feels petty. So you do it. Test passed. The late arrival. Someone keeps you waiting 20 minutes and offers a light apology. You say, no problem, don't worry about it. That's not politeness. That's a price quote. You just told them your time is worth roughly nothing. The joke at your expense. A small comment in front of others wrapped in humor. You laugh along because objecting would make you look sensitive. And in that laugh, you've licensed the next one, which will be sharper. The boundary tap. They do something you've explicitly said you don't like. And then watch your face. Not your words, your face. If it stays pleasant, they've learned your stated boundaries are decorative. Now, understand what makes these tests so effective. Each one is individually trivial. Refusing any single one makes you look like you're overreacting to nothing. And that's precisely the design. The smallness isn't incidental. It's the weapon. You cannot object to something small without appearing small yourself. And that trap is where good people live permanently. Here's what the test is actually measuring. Not whether you notice. Most people notice. It's measuring whether you'll pay a social cost to enforce yourself. Because enforcing a boundary always costs something. a moment of tension, a look of disapproval, the risk of being called difficult. The person testing you wants to know one thing: is that cost more than you're willing to pay? For most kind people, the answer is yes. And once that's established, the escalation isn't cruelty, it's just efficiency. Why would they carry a cost you've proven you'll carry for them? Watch the timing of it and you'll see the pattern. The tests come early: first weeks of a job, first month of a relationship, first interactions with a new group. That's not coincidence. That's when your price is still unknown and therefore still negotiable. After that window closes, the price is set, and changing it later requires far more force than setting it correctly at the start. So, your third tool is recognition in real time. The next time something small and unfair happens, don't ask, "Is this worth making a scene over?" That question is rigged, and it's how you lose every time. Ask instead, "If I accept this, what am I agreeing to permanently?" Because you're not responding to an incident, you're setting a rate. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing, because your kindness doesn't just fail to protect you. Under specific conditions, it actively makes people want to hurt you. And that isn't Machiavelli's opinion. It's been measured in a laboratory. In 2010, researchers Craig Parks and Asako Stone ran an experiment that produced a result so counterintuitive, they had to run it several ways to be sure. Participants played a group game where each person could contribute to a shared pool. Some players contributed the bare minimum, freeloaders. Some contributed generously, far more than required, and took less out than they put in. Then participants were asked who they'd want removed from the group before the next round. You'd expect the freeloaders. And yes, they were disliked. But the researchers found something else. The most generous players, the ones giving more than anyone and taking less, were also targeted for removal. In some conditions, people wanted the unusually generous player gone as much as the cheater. Sit with that. The person actively making everyone else better off was punished for it. The researchers called it do-gooder derogation, and when they asked participants why, the answers were revealing. The generous player made them look bad. He raised expectations. He made the normal people feel like they were falling short. And rather than rise to that standard, they preferred to eliminate the person setting it. Read that again, because it rewrites something you've believed your whole life. You were taught that if you're good enough, people will value you. The data says something colder. Goodness that costs other people something. Comfort, status, the ability to feel fine about themselves, generates resentment, not gratitude. Now apply it to your actual life. The colleague who works hardest is called a try-hard. The friend who's most reliable is the one whose needs get scheduled last. The family member who does the most caretaking is the one everyone feels most comfortable being short with. This isn't bad luck. It's the same mechanism running everywhere, every day. And here's the deepest layer of it. Constant giving doesn't create obligation, it creates hierarchy. When you're always the one giving, you're not building goodwill. You're establishing a position. I am below you, my needs come second, my time is available. People don't feel grateful to someone below them. They feel comfortable. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries before the psychology lab. Whoever believes that new benefits make great men forget old injuries deceives himself. Your generosity does not buy you protection, it buys you a role, and the role is the one who absorbs things. Quick thing while we're here, and it's small, but it matters. If any of this is landing, if you've recognized yourself in the last few minutes, take 2 seconds and hit like and subscribe. It's a small act of enforcing something you actually think, instead of scrolling past passively, which is honestly the whole theme of this video in miniature. Then, let's keep going, because the next part is where this turns on you. Because so far this has been about them, the testers, the takers, the people who punish generosity. But there's a question hiding under all of it that changes the entire picture, and the answer isn't flattering. Stop and ask yourself something uncomfortable. When you don't push back, when you let it slide, absorb the cost, keep the peace. Is that actually kindness, or is it something else wearing kindness as a costume? Be honest about what you feel in those moments. Not compassion, not generosity. Most of the time, what you feel is a tightening in your chest, a flash of dread at the thought of the confrontation, a desperate desire for the tension to end, and then relief when you give in. That's not virtue, that's fear management. Here's the reversal most people never make. You are not being taken advantage of because you're too good. You're being taken advantage of because you're afraid of conflict, of being disliked, of being seen as difficult, of someone being angry at you. And you have wrapped that fear in the most flattering possible language because "I'm a kind person" is much easier to live with than "I'm afraid to be disliked." This is why the standard advice fails. People tell you to set boundaries, and you already know that. You've known it for years. The reason you don't do it isn't ignorance. It's that every boundary requires you to tolerate someone being unhappy with you. And that is the one thing you've organized your entire personality around avoiding. And notice what this fear actually costs the people around you. Real kindness sometimes requires saying the hard thing, telling a friend the truth, refusing to enable a family member's behavior, holding someone to a standard. Your version of kindness, the one that never risks disapproval, cannot do any of that. So it isn't the higher moral position, it's the safer one, and you've been calling it goodness. Here's the test, and it's your fifth tool. The next time you're about to let something go, ask one question. Am I doing this because it's genuinely the wise thing here, or because I can't stand the feeling of them being upset with me? The two feel identical from inside. They are completely different. One is a choice, the other is a compulsion wearing a halo. I want to know where you land on this, so tell me in the comments. Are you the person who still can't say no, or the one who learned how? Type 1 or 2. I suspect the split will be more lopsided than people expect, because here's what follows from all of this. If your kindness comes from fear, then no technique will save you. You'll learn the scripts and still fold in the moment because the fear is still driving. What actually changes things isn't a better boundary. It's becoming someone who can afford to be disliked. And that's a different kind of man entirely. Machiavelli described exactly how he operates. Move 1. Be good by choice, not by default. Machiavelli's core instruction to the prince was that he must learn how not to be good and to use this knowledge or not use it according to necessity. Read that carefully. He isn't saying be evil. He's saying your goodness must be a decision you're capable of not making. A man who is kind because he doesn't know how to be anything else isn't kind. He's harmless. And harmless is a category people treat very differently from good. The moment your kindness becomes a choice rather than a reflex, its entire meaning changes, to you and to everyone watching. Move 2. Make refusal your default, not your exception. Right now, your default is yes, and no requires justification. Reverse it. The strong operate from a quiet, non-hostile no that must be earned into a yes. Not aggressive. You don't need to explain, argue, or apologize. I can't take that on. That doesn't work for me. Full stop. No essay attached. The explanation is the weak point. The moment you justify, you've opened a negotiation. And notice what happens to your yes when it becomes rare. It starts to mean something. Move 3. Impose a cost once, early, and let it be seen. This is the one people avoid, and it's the one that changes everything. You do not need to be cruel or dramatic. You need one clean instance where crossing you costs something. A request refused, a favor withdrawn, a task handed back, a relationship where you visibly stopped showing up. What you're establishing is not fear, it's information. Machiavelli understood that reputation does more work than force ever does, because force must be repeated and reputation works while you sleep. One demonstration is worth 100 stated boundaries. Move 4. Watch reciprocity, not words. Anyone can say they value you. Track the actual ledger instead. Over the last 6 months, who has given you something that cost them? Who has only received? Do this coldly, on paper if you have to, because your feelings will lie to you here. You'll credit people for warmth they've shown while never noticing they've never once carried a cost for you. When you see the real ratios, you'll understand why some relationships drain you. They're not relationships, they're arrangements. Move 5. Give generously, but only where it's earned. This is not a video about becoming closed and suspicious. That's just a different kind of failure, and it will cost you every real bond you have. The correction isn't giving less, it's giving deliberately. Full generosity to the small number of people who have demonstrated they reciprocate. Cool, polite, minimal to those who haven't, not punishment. Allocation. Your kindness is a finite resource, and spreading it evenly across everyone means the people who deserve it get the same as the people exploiting it. But all 5 of these are just mechanics. They'll help, and they'll fail eventually, unless you understand the thing underneath. Because there's a final truth about why people walk over you, and it has nothing to do with them at all. Here is the thing I promised you at the start, and it reframes everything. People don't walk over you because you're good. They walk over you because your goodness has no strength behind it. And a strength you don't have is a strength nobody has to respect. The word we translate as virtue in Machiavelli isn't what you think it is. His word was virtù, and it doesn't mean moral goodness at all. It comes from vir, man, and it means force, capability, the power to act on the world and impose your will on circumstance. For Machiavelli, virtù was the quality that let a man shape events instead of being shaped by them. Notice what that means. In his framework, a good man with no capacity to act isn't virtuous at all. He's simply passive, and calling it morality is a costume. Savonarola had every moral quality and no virtù, and the world erased him. Not because goodness is worthless, but because goodness without power is a preference, not a force, and the world does not negotiate with preferences. So here's the reveal in full. Your problem was never that you're too kind. Your problem is that you have kindness and nothing else. You have the soft quality and not the hard one. And the soft quality alone doesn't read as virtue to other people. It reads as availability. And now the part that should genuinely change how you see yourself. A good man who cannot be dangerous isn't good. He's just harmless. Real virtue requires the capacity for its opposite. You cannot call yourself merciful if you were never able to punish. You cannot call yourself generous if you were never able to refuse. You cannot call yourself patient if you were never able to strike. Every virtue is only meaningful as a restraint on a power you actually have. Without the power, it isn't restraint. It's just incapacity, dressed up as morality. This is why the man everyone respects is never the nicest man in the room. He's the one who is clearly capable of far worse than he chooses to do. His kindness carries weight precisely because everyone senses it's a choice. People read that instantly, the same way they read your low price instantly. Both are visible in seconds. So the goal was never to become harder or colder or to stop being good. That's the mistake people make when they encounter Machiavelli and turn into imitation cynics. The goal is to build the second half of yourself, the part that can say no without flinching, impose a cost without guilt, and walk away without an explanation. Not to use it constantly, to have it. Because the moment you have it, everything changes without you doing anything. The tests stop coming, the small violations stop. Not because you've announced anything or become someone unpleasant, but because people can read a price, and yours is no longer zero. That's the whole difference. Not between good men and bad men. Between good men who can defend themselves and good men who get burned in the square while the city watches. So the answer was never to stop being a good person. It was to stop being only that. Keep every bit of the kindness. It's not a weakness, and the world is worse without it. But build the other half. Learn to say no without a paragraph of justification. Let one person feel the cost of crossing you cleanly without apology. Give freely to the few who give back, and give politely and minimally to everyone else. Not out of bitterness, out of accuracy. And when the tension comes, that tightening in your chest when someone's about to be unhappy with you, Recognize what it actually is. It isn't your conscience telling you to be kind. It's the fear that has been quietly running your life, asking you to pay one more time. Don't pay it. Sit in the discomfort of being disliked for 10 seconds and notice that you survive it. Then do it again next week. That's the whole practice. And it's harder than any philosophy, because it means becoming a person some people won't like. Machiavelli watched a genuinely good man burn in a public square because his goodness had nothing standing behind it. 500 years later, the mechanism hasn't changed at all. Only the square is smaller now, and the fire is quieter, and it happens in offices and family dinners and friendships that take and take. Be good, but be the kind of good that costs something to cross.